I just take the batteries.
It is 5 o'clock and I call this meeting to order. Public Safety Wednesday, May 3rd. Roll call. I declare that we're all present. We have quorum. Can I get a motion to approve with the slight change in order of 8 and 9? Do we have one motion to approve the agenda and previous month's minutes?
I'll move to approve the agenda and the previous month's minutes with the amendment of moving 8 and 9 up before 7.
Yeah. And a second.
I'll second. Or did you raise your hand?
Looking at-
Whatever you want to do, I can second it too.
Emerson.
Okay,
All
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nice, so approved. Chairperson's comments, my goodness, I had so much to say. As a pastor, we say, I just have a word and then it becomes a sermon. No, I don't know, I kind of wanted to start out on a good note and thinking about things in terms of personal goals and goals of committees and purpose of committees, and especially how public safety gets filtered through so many different committees. So it's like, looking at what's the purpose of this particularly. And one of I think my personal goals, and I think it aligns with the committee as a whole, would be to maintain healthy village departments for the sake of the village. I think that maybe is a good working statement. I like that understanding of a healthy department, and we can discuss what does that mean, healthy, and I think also for the sake of the village, everything we do is always for the village. So that's all I wanted to share. And we are going to go straight to the the general update of the fire department. So Jason.
Okay. Thank you. Everybody, this is Carrie Smith.
We know, we met last
He
night.
helped me with my end of the month report, and now he's getting just to see how the public safety meeting works. Even though he's been in attendance to a number of meetings, he kind of has a good understanding how they all go. But Carrie's been an outstanding member for 22 years now. Yeah. So, thank you for coming. Summary of the month. It was a busy month. I can't believe it. Last year was a record number of calls for us, and last month I think we were 2 calls over our record, and this month we are 5 calls over last year's record. So we are well underway to having another busy year. Activities for the month, we just regular meetings, first responder trainings. Our first arrived wildfire burn was right across from the fire station. You guys probably saw the black marks, which will be green here in about 2 weeks. So went real well, no problems. And we had a couple guys go for advanced rapid intervention training, which I took the regular course years ago, and it's outstanding. Teaches you all kinds of things, how to self-rescue, do like head first ladder bails out of a 2nd-story window, how to use a hose to haul somebody out of the basement. It's really good training. Vehicle conditions, not much has changed there. And the only thing I had for discussion was during one of our meetings, we talked about being paid for setup for the street dance. Somebody mentioned that we have like a drill or a meeting beforehand, and then after that we do setup. I know over the years, those drills and meetings have dwindled to almost nothing. And we concentrate more on the setting up for the dance, because years ago we had 35 guys and now we've got like 10. And our dance has gotten bigger, we outside tents and 2 bars instead of 1, so the dance setup takes longer. But I just wanted to clarify that moving forward, we'll keep track of that better and not come anywhere near being paid for that drill. I think we kind of internally justified it over the years by you know, that was one drill that was paid. And then nothing else was, and at the end of it. The village got a nice squeaky clean fire station afterwards, cause we haul all the gear out. We get in there, we hose everything down, we scrub the floor with brushes, you know, sweep all the cobwebs out from the corners, we rinse off the front apron, so. Right or wrong, that's how we kind of justified it, but moving forward, we will keep that 100% separate, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
On the entire thing?
Just on the-
On the
general.
monthly reports.
Sure. I just have questions, and this is just really for my knowledge, I think, so, okay, and if I need to ask this later, not in a meeting, that's fine too,
No
but
problem, it's your first public safety meeting.
okay, thank you. So fire versus EMS, like I understand what EMS is. As
Mhm.
soon as it's qualified as like an accident, is that where it's
Fire.
fire?
Mhm.
Because that could be like, I don't know, jaws of life or whatever.
Exactly,
Okay,
if we keep the jaws of life on the
Okay.
engine, and there's traffic control and
okay.
possible fire of the wrecked vehicle, yeah.
And woman in a river, like that would be like, if you have to take someone out, that's a whole different level of, right, like that's not EMS, that's.
Rescue.
That's,
Right,
okay.
We'll do.
I was just trying to split them on my head and understand the difference.
But there would still be EMS available in case they needed medical support, right?
of course, yep,
Cause that's, and right, like even for this motorcycle accident, like obviously you guys are trained two ways, right? So it's fire, that's what we're putting it under because it reaches that level, but EMS is
Available.
happening if it.
That motorcycle one with the township, so that's, they have their own township responders and an ambulance service, that would not be our, that would not be the village's EMS.
Okay, so like this one, I'm assuming is Cranmore, so Cranmore probably has something different?
Cranmore got hired our EMS, correct?
Okay, so sometime,
So
okay,
that, yeah, you have
We
a
have a
contract
contract
with Cranmore,
With
right?
Cranmore, not the township.
No, township of Cranmore.
and then the lady in the river, that was Nakusa's
yeah,
area, so we were just
figured.
called for mutual aid, Nakusa has their own medical
okay,
stuff.
perfect. And then my only other questions, so like down here,
Mhm.
when we had. When it says 0 members, does that mean someone like Rapids or someone responded, because we did have people that. Were available because it's working hours or whatever, is that kind of when that happens?
Right, see, we just have first responders that provide basic life support.
Okay.
Until the paramedics get there.
Okay,
Rapids
perfect.
ambulance, we contract with them, they always come.
Okay,
And sometimes, you know, we have, if it's a weird time, daytime calls are always the worst because people are at work.
working or whatever, okay,
So if we don't respond, Rapids ambulance is always.
there
coming,
anyways.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jason, could you kind of elaborate on some of the nature of the EMS calls, like what we're looking at?
I don't have the details in front of me and I do that for a reason, just for any danger of violating.
Oh, yeah, I
the
don't want
rules.
that kind of, just
Things like that. It's anything and everything, you know, a lot of lift assist calls with elderly people or people who fall and are unable to get up. We had a drug overdose. What are some of the other ones we had? You know, complications post-op, surgeries, anything and everything. We get some pretty non-pretty ones that happen in the bathroom and yeah, cuts,
Talking about me. Because my husband always drags me out of there.
Oh, and I was a first responder, I finger amputations,
Heart attack. type
heart
symptoms.
attacks, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, I think it's interesting too, just that there's no, there's no, two addresses that are the same. I mean, it doesn't seem to be right now any repeated offender.
I think there's one on there that doubles,
There.
but, yeah, we got some frequent flyers, we call them, where it's just a person who is in poor health.
Yeah.
And, you know, sick a
Okay.
lot, or they fall a lot, things like
I just,
that.
yeah, I didn't know, would you say like, like the rise of the call due to maybe an aging community, or do you think it's age-based, or just, would you?
I've been trying to put my finger on it. I've heard from a lot of people that it's still fallout from COVID because a lot of people during the lockdown, they didn't get, you know, routine physicals or exams, or, you know, they were unwilling to go into assisted care facilities, things like that. And so people's health just kind of declined, you know, also being sedentary. You know, not lockdown, not getting out in public.
Depression.
Depression, they
Yeah.
put on weight, things like that, yeah.
I was gonna ask that too, because I saw you had like 11 welfare checks or whatever, so I was wondering if those are mental health. Do you guys get called on those kind of calls too, depending on how it gets reported?
Yeah, depending, I guess, mental health is a little different. If the person is in danger to themselves, we'll be on standby while the police department sorts it out. But yeah, we had suicide calls, attempted suicide calls,
So you guys get some.
people
of that
just
too.
not feeling well. Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Any other questions or anything else for your report?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Of the fire contracts that we have, are they all fire and EMS?
No,
How many EMS contracts do we have?
we have just one with Cranmore. I'm still working on another one with another municipality because we do provide EMS service in that area.
Hmm.
It was kind of a handshake agreement years and years ago, and
Mhm.
we
Sure.
need to get something
Lock it down.
formal, yeah. Right.
Good. Moving on, a great segue to number 9, review of emergency call response by the village, I guess, village department, fire department, I guess. Or EMS, number of calls last year versus this year, cost of that service, and discussion of the redundancy of effort in conjunction with our ambulance contract. So, just some background to that. We're just discussing it for recommendation either to the village board or to FHR, whichever way we want to go with it. The ambulance contract, which is currently 18,000, will jump to 45,000 January 1st. And this is also in response to the fact that the EMS calls is I would say the leading factor of bloated expenses for the department. And the redundancy of efforts in conjunction, we're in discussion of how far should somebody drive in the response time, and what happens when they show up after an ambulance, and the efficiency of all that. So that's all I have with that. So Bob, would you like to add anything to that information? We don't have a handout with this.
Yeah, no, and I really just
Keep flipping
open the
for it,
question.
yeah.
So, this has just been, bubbling based on just the metrics that we have documented for now 3 years. And, yeah, we had COVID, yeah, we had other issues going on. We have an aging population. That's the consensus of the Rapids Fire Department, and the amount of calls that they support. So it's really, just to make sure that the board is fully aware that we are gonna continue providing full fire coverage as well as EMS coverage irregardless. That's happening. That happens with a cost. And right now, if you took your entirety of your payroll for the fire department, a standing norm right now is close to 50% of the budget goes straight to just the EMS side of it. So we have a department of 16, 17, 20 people average.
16 right now,
So we
yeah.
have 60-man firefighter department that's responding as required for fires. And they are consuming, for 16 guys, we're paying 50%, which comes out for payroll about $30,000. I think 60,000 is y'all's payroll budget, I believe.
Right, yeah.
So the average is that. And I'm giving you very, very high over numbers here. We know for a fact that last year and so far this year that 50% of the budget is going straight to the EMS calls. That averaging is as well about $30,000. The difference, the way I look at it, metric wise, I got 30 grand that's paying for 16 guys to respond to fires in totality. I got 30 grand that's paying for, on average, 3 to 4 guys to respond to EMS calls.
How
So I
many,
look at strictly just by those data points.
How many total first responders are there?
Let's see. Adley, Nick, Josh, Brian. Fletcher. I have Fletcher, yeah, he's in charge of it. 5 right now.
Five to six, yeah. Yeah, and when we see the numbers every quarter when the payroll comes in, so it's more of, if we're fine with that. We're just gonna continue to run into circumstances like last year, budget time, that where I used the term, we're busting the budget because of payroll. This is why we're busting the budget. It's not the fires. We have a good handle of how many fires we respond to historically. We budget for that. We're good on the fire responses. It's the unplanned EMS calls that can spike tremendously. And for us to set a higher number, we just won't be able to afford it. So we set the number that we had last year, that's the cap, and then we continue to be surprised. The two ways to approach is just continue on, everyone accepts it, come budget time, or not even budget time, come third quarter, he will be asking for more money for payroll. All right, so that's a way to do it. We can look at going to far extreme and reducing EMS to 0, and we're just a fire department. We keep EMS certified people, because when a fire is responding, there's still EMS guys and gals on scene dealing with injuries. But they are not 911 shooting out there when, especially, it's gonna be harder to justify to citizens. I'm paying $48,000 for a contract that is dedicated to us, meets the criteria, will come to every 911 call. But I'm also sending 2 Fort Edwards firefighters to the same scene at a cost, we're 45 plus 30, now we're close to his entire budget for EMS. That's a concern that I look at. So that's one extreme. You axe it and they just are firefighters. Or you just reduce what we pay an EMS call. And now we have the standing numbers of, we pay for a meeting, we pay for training, we pay for a fire/EMS. Fire EMS 34, I believe.
Mhm.
Meetings are 20.
Yeah, 20.
And then right in the middle is what we pick for training. And I apologize, I should have been, I got them on the back of my desk. But we would find a reducing the number of 34 to either go right to the meeting and just what we pay for a meeting, because a meeting we're paying for about 2 hours of work. There hasn't been one of these EMS calls where they're on scene more than 2 hours. So my justification is I pay you what I would pay you for a meeting. So we pay $20. So now you're almost slashing the budget by 40% automatically, just based on, that's what we're gonna pay these guys. So we're still responding. We're still giving them the opportunity to continue their training and respond and serve the village. But we're going to reduce the fee, because what will physically happen, and it could happen for fire, is that they can go to a fire and they're there for 4, 5, 6 hours. And they get paid $34 plus a little bit of overtime for every hour after 2 hours. That could consume a day, and it consumes the fire department totality. I could have, worst case scenario, I could have 6 of these EMS calls. And one of those individual firefighters would be consuming about almost $200 for one day of activity. Because they get paid by call, not by hour. So a call could last 30 minutes, call could last 3 hours for an EMS call. So I hate to put life-saving in money numbers, but the reality of it is we have to in some cases.
You said they get paid by the call, you mean the ambulance?
The call, so these calls that was provided here, that's individual calls. They could all be on one day. They could all be scattered through the month. But if there's 4, 5, 6 calls a day and someone responds, no, they don't have to respond. It could be, just consumes a lot of budget.
Jason, I have a couple questions.
Mhm.
Do you track, like, when first responders arrive, are they arriving before rapids?
I don't track that.
Can we track that and get an idea of, I mean, maybe we could find some efficiencies there. For me, what I've experienced with you guys coming out is that comfort and security of knowing you guys are here.
Mhm.
And I think that means, I mean, that's pretty powerful. And then it's, like a lot of lifts and, just a fall, things like that. But if I don't think we should necessarily be paying if we're not even there before rapids. Does that?
It's such a broad spectrum of calls, you know, you can, if you have a hard rule like that. Well, we didn't pay this guy or gal, this wage because they got there after rapids, but on a real traumatic call, you know, there's only a couple of paramedics on the rapids ambulance. I've done it a couple of times where I drive the ambulance to the hospital and they're working the
Yeah.
patient in the back.
Yeah.
So it's a real judgment thing, like I said, I would caution against cutting wages because obviously nobody likes that. I would caution against just stopping the EMS in the third quarter.
Do you have thoughts on,
Yeah, I mean, one thought would be to filter, to let the guys individually filter the severity of the call. You know, if it's a lift assist, do we need people, you know, 4 guys to respond and get there after the ambulance? Probably not. The downside of that, yes, it comes in as a lift assist, but then you find out it's, you know, a 600-pound person down in the basement. Well, then it becomes a multi-person operation and you want all the help there you can get. So I don't know, there's such a big range of calls and you get limited information on the initial page.
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions.
when you talk about the number of people on the call, I did notice that, and I wonder like, is it necessary to have 3 people or 4 people when Rapids is getting there pretty quick also? I mean, maybe that would be a way without having a huge, what might feel of a negative impact. Maybe if we like started to look for efficiencies in that way, like, do we need 2 or 3 or 4 people on call or just 1 or 2?
Mhm.
Is there sort of, when you get the call and they say this type of call, is there, a determination like this is gonna require 1, 2, or 3? Or is it just sort of 3 people happen to call and you got there at the same time? Or is it like, this is a 3-person call? This situation requires, you know,
You have one of the notifications that comes up on your phone, the EMS thing.
Yeah.
Can you pull up one
want me
when
to
you
do it
come in,
now?
or? Gary, can you pull up one?
I can make a statement
Yeah.
too. I mean, Jerry Muse, that call came in as a man down not feeling well. And we were at the station for a drill or whatever it was. And one of the first responders stayed back, didn't need to go. There was only 2 of them. 2 of them went, they got there. It was a PMD. Pulse is not breathing. But it didn't come across on the page like that. So myself and Officer Fletcher jumped in my personal truck and we drove over there to help with the PMD CPR. But originally it didn't come across like that. So I mean, when you're going to a call, just like a fire call, you know, of a smoking outlet, and you think, well, that's nothing. Well, guess what? 15 minutes later, the wall's up. You know, you don't know till you're really there. So I mean, making calls before you're actually on scene is hard to do. But I mean, back in the day when first responders started, a long time ago, but then in the early 2000s, we had 12 members on first responders. And we had limited it to 3 being paid. And that kind of stopped a lot of people that live up by, even as far as Mansell live, they stopped coming. Because we had 1 across the road, 1 block away, and 1 2 blocks away. So them 3 were always there. So you were driving down there not for anything. So that kind of dispersed a little bit of the first responders getting out. It's like, well, I'm not ever going to calls. So now we have Rapids ambulance, which is, as soon as that page comes out, they're in the truck, they're moving. Back then, we had Nakusa. Nakusa got called, somebody drove to the station. Or there was someone at the station, they pulled the truck out, but they had to wait for somebody to drive to the station to get in the ambulance before they showed up. So we are at that time, so like with Mansell's, they get paged. Josh is driving to the fire station. But at the same time, at Nakusa, somebody was driving to that fire station. So that time was voided, I mean, it was equal. Now, the page comes out, Mansell gets the page, he's leaving his house, which is 2 miles away. He's driving 2 miles to the fire station to get a vehicle. Well, the ambulance is leaving 17th Street and he's going 2 miles. He's at the port line. If the call's on the north side of 4th Street, the ambulance is gonna be the first responders there, 9 times out of 10.
I think we've touched on, if you don't mind. I think we've touched on, what about logistically? Because I also know what it feels like to feel that crisis and my God, when is somebody getting here?
Mhm.
What about logistically eliminating the go to the station part? What about if we equipped vehicles with lights and you had emergency response equipment? Because you're not like, I mean, what kind of equipment, I mean, do you guys, so when you walk in the house with the bag, right? Would it be a better use of our money to budget that kind of prep where, like, say, 4 or 6 emergency responders that are in port had a bag?
I know they do that in some of the outlying areas, like Saratoga, they don't even have a fire station, so their Saratoga first responders carry their own jump bag. It would be interesting to crunch the numbers and see, because, you know, we have a lot of equipment on that truck, the oxygen, defibrillator, even those little portable one hitters, those things run $4 or $5 grand. It'd be interesting to see if you would outfit 5 first responders, each one with, you know, $8,000 worth of gear, you know, $40,000, how far would that carry you
Or even if,
versus what we have now until that gear needs to be replaced?
even if you had like 2 people that respond, one person gets on scene right now and the other person grabs all your stuff, something like that.
Mhm.
I mean, if we just could like really talk about where could be some efficiencies rather than going straight to cut the program.
Well, I think that, I think a related thing too is that I mean, it's not incredibly unique, but we have train tracks that pretty much split the town in half. And I think the thought was, especially when an ambulance gets caught by a train, I don't know how often it happens,
It's rare, but it happens.
but it's like, you know, it'd be so nice if there was a first responder that was already on the other side of the tracks in those cases.
Mhm.
And that's even relevant to me, that's relevant to you all. I shouldn't have to care, but I guess I do, but I just thought, like, it would be nice if we had someone that was stationed already over there with things like that, but that might not necessarily be a relevant conversation to what's at hand yet.
I
I mean,
can
it's
just,
all relevant.
I know that there's been a couple times where Josh has been caught by the train track and he can't get to, and it was during the day when he happened to be on vacation,
Mhm.
and that was aggravating for him, knowing I just need to get there, but he had to turn around and go back the other way.
Mhm.
So I think, obviously I'm trying not to do conflict of interest, so that's why I'm not gonna talk about the money part. But even equipping him with basic stuff, gloves, face masks, like the CPR masks, just enough to be able to help until somebody arrives.
That's
Is
a
my
good part,
opinion.
because I do understand that one of the benefits of a first responder, because if they get there before the ambulance, things often run more smoothly because you've already collected the necessary information. And, you know, so even if they had bare minimum, at least get the situation assessed could also be beneficial as well.
Yeah.
Okay, one of these things I've crossed back years ago is if you're responding in your personal vehicle, you better check your personal insurance, because mine would not cover me on an emergency call. So you are 100% liable if you were to get in an accident or have a heart attack or anything, you are 100% on your own.
And I do believe that it has to be an emergency. We'd have to outfit it as an emergency vehicle. Yeah.
And then would you be covering the personal vehicle underneath the village's insurance? If they were in an accident?
That's a whole nother.
That's
Well-
I had to switch insurances to do that. Because if I was ever, if we got a call, because this is the biggest thing, if we were 1022 on the way to the station, and at the time we didn't know until we got to the station, we we're 1022. But on fire, we are underneath the village's insurance.
Sure.
Going there, so if something happens, we're under work related, but if something happens in my personal vehicle and I get an accident. That was a big thing, my insurance would not cover me, so then I had to switch insurances to find that you become high risk, because you become an emergency vehicle. and it's a high-risk insurance, and
And you're gonna pay
your
more.
rates go freaking through the roof. That's why you go to the fire station, you get in a person in a village vehicle, you're covered,
But the village will cover you to get to the station?
we are covered.
And
under-
why wouldn't we cover them to get to a call if it was even a shorter distance?
There's a.
Because I think you have to respond if
You're responding in a village vehicle, you're just getting to the station, so you're on your site.
Right, but
You
on your
cannot say,
route, you're
take your
en route,
POV.
But
so you can respond.
it's all right, but when they're responding, they're not an emergency vehicle.
Yep.
Because they're not equipped with lights and sirens, so they're responding on their own accord to work. Once they arrive at work, they're, now they can operate, in, above the speed limit and all those things. Before that, they're technically not, they're not allowed to.
But if we were to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Once that page goes off.
Yep.
If we were to have a heart attack. on
You're
the original
responding.
message, we are responding, we are covered under workman's comp.
Yeah, they're on call for a fire, yeah.
Can I make one more comment, Caleb? Hindsight's always 20/20, and, for these guys, yeah, there's calls I go to, and I'm thinking, where the hell are the first responders? And somebody shows up after the ambulance, but the next one, I'm doing CPR on somebody, and when they show up, I thank God if there's one or a dozen of them, and the problem is like you said, I mean, I've been to difficulty breathing complaints. You get they're dead, they're long dead. Yeah, they're definitely having difficulty breathing, but so you don't always know. The problem with limiting, like, I'll have one, or the problem is, I mean, unless you have a schedule that carries off this day, you're on Monday, Tuesday, you're on, it just, because they're volunteer and because they're responding, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I'm sorry, you just might not get somebody. They're not paid to be sitting around just waiting for that pager to go off. So I guess, it's very difficult because I see the costs, and hopefully there is something feasible that can be, if you're in Rapids and it's a nosebleed, maybe we can disregard, but and as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see them at every single thing. I know the challenges.
I'd like to wrap this up. but-
Yeah, one more. Is there, let's say a page goes off for a first responder, especially just because that seems to be the bigger bulk item here. Is there anything saying, like, if you're way at Walmart, please don't come, because chances are the ambulance is gonna be packed up and gone by the time they get all the way across? I mean, is there any kind of, because would that help alleviate some of the people showing up after the ambulance? I mean, I understand that there's gonna be some where it'd be nice to have another set of hands too,
Mhm.
but is it relevant to come across town knowing it's gonna be a done issue by the time you get across town safely? Cause that's the
Right.
other.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. In our obsessive need to be prepared for every situation, I mean, we encourage people to show up.
Mhm.
Just because we had it multiple times, there's been a train, which delayed the ambulance, or we've had two calls happening simultaneously where,
Yeah,
the rescue is busy. And then people are working one patient, we get another call, where we've had to take engine 3, which has backup medical supplies, and go to that one, so. If you have your resources tied up at one and another call happens, they need available people, and your people who always respond to calls are busy, so you need the backup, or not the backup people, but extra hands, so I see what you're saying. I hope you can understand what I'm saying.
right, and I
too.
get it too, it's just,
It's just not manageable, I mean, because
yeah.
It's tough. Rapids, Jason Joling explained it very well to me. He says when he first started being a firefighter and a paramedic, they were a fire department with an ambulance. And now, because of the way times change, they are an ambulance service with a fire truck.
Yeah.
Just the medical calls have become the bread and butter.
the situation we have now, it's for y'all, even the board, when you're talking the budget numbers. It's what I call budget dust. In the reality, I'm paying $18,000 for an ambulance service that responded in 2022 to 162 calls. That's peanuts on the dollar per call. Alright, so, but when that dynamic changes next year, and we're on track to keep those numbers this year. They're already up to,
Mhm.
what was your numbers of ambulance calls? 30 some, 40 something now? So they're on track to hit that same number. We're gonna go into next year for the $45,000, the same amount of calls. It's just going to become a concern of our residents that we're paying for this premium service. And all your points here are great and valid. It's not, it's addressing how to get Fort Edwards to the scene. These guys know how to get Fort Edwards to the scene. They know how to find out the efficiencies. They know who's on call. They know they're gonna do whatever. We can throw bags in cars, but just understand Saratoga does that. Saratoga also pays $150,000 in insurance premiums to cover their first responders.
Ugh.
That ain't gonna happen here. I don't even pay that for my insurance coverage for our village right now. So Saratoga, because they don't have a fire department, they can throw money against their first responders. And of the 162 calls, and this is no offense to our fire department, 92, a Port Edwards guy or gal was on scene. Of the 92, only 80 were 80, they were on scene well after the fact. They got there when they were maybe whopping blood up. Again, it's not against our firefighters. We're volunteer guys that show up to a station and drive to a scene. So at 12 of the calls last year, a Port Edwards guy or gal was on scene before the ambulance dealing with the issues.
Can you provide us with that so we have reference?
Yeah, sure.
Send it to us
From
in an email.
their fire chiefs. I'll give you that, and we're already tracking the 2023 numbers. So I think just, we either need to budget appropriately for it, and you guys need to be accepting that it's gonna go up. That's fine. If removing the program is off the table for the board, you're not gonna get an argument from me. I just then need to figure out how we're gonna pay for it and how we're gonna fund it appropriately and support it. So.
Yeah, this will be the last.
Sure, so obviously, like, the idea of cutting it from $34 to $20 or whatever it was on the table, and I hear you and you're like, people don't like that. I get it, right? They're leaving their homes, they're going, we don't want it to be like, well, we're not gonna go to this call because we're getting cut, but would there, I'm just throwing this out there, would there be any discussion with those guys to say like, hey, if you're on a call and you're only there for half an hour or something like that, would they be open then to saying like, you know, it was only a half hour increment, so we're gonna be paid this, or I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, or if it's like, that was a super easy call, didn't really do much versus the 600-pound man, and I don't know what that looks like, and I get that could get into the weeds as far as like, how do you dictate what's what, but is there any wiggle room, or is that like you're like, that's a no-go with the guys
I can
and
bring it
girls?
up in
No, guys. all guys.
10 or if 30 minutes in our meeting, gauge people's,
Reactions.
reactions. I mean,
I'll make a
it
comment.
would be a pay cut. I mean.
Right, and
you
I
out from
get it,
30 to
like-
34 to 20, so
Especially when people are getting certified and putting in time, and I get that.
it's an enormous amount of training.
Yep.
Yep.
My comment is, well, if you're going from 34 to 20, as Bob says, the next option is 34 to 0. You don't have one,
Mhm,
so 20 sounds pretty goddamn good, and you have a program.
right,
So if they don't wanna be of assistance to the village, then they'll take the 0. But if they're willing to be an assistance, then they probably will negotiate with 20.
Well, I'm just trying to keep the peace.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm
But-
saying
but
that's
as
kind of.
Jason said, they're gonna, you know, trying to get a pay
Wanna
cut.
go to my
it's
house
gonna-
later?
yeah.
And I get it, like, I wanna keep the peace
Yeah.
too, it's just, what's the solution? We need a sugar daddy and another truck on the side of that side of the.
interesting.
Well, do we-
I won't forget
If
that.
you're asking the department to try to bring back some feedback, then you can pick this till next month. I
Okay,
mean, it's-
would you wanna just keep it to next month and?
Yeah, I'd like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I would, I'd like to hear what they say.
I'll bring it up
Yeah.
and see what people say.
Thank you very much. Okay. Police.
Well, let's see, I'll try to make this short. Sometimes I'm okay with that, but. To start off, we assisted the school district and the health department with a and in plain sight. Is it in plain sight or in
In plain-
plain view?
In plain sight.
Okay, good, I got it right,
You're right.
okay.
Yeah.
This was a wonderful program that was not attended.
I was there, I was
Um,
watching.
We did have some remote viewers, but otherwise it was pretty much presenters. A school board member and his wife and staff. It was really a nice, I think it was nicely put on by the health department. We're gonna try to, I guess, in the future, try to work it into a back to school night or something so that we can force parents to see what they need to see. Cause it was, I mean, it was interesting for me to see some of these
It was interesting.
stash
for me.
compartments and different
Yes.
trends that are going on, different clothing lines and stuff that are giving signs that our kids are involved in stuff that I didn't have a clue of, but apparently most parents. The Nacusa School District, the Fort School District, Police Department, Health Department, Healthy Peoplewood County, all did this mass advertising and no one came. So if anybody would like some pretzels, I still have some in my office.
Some of the bugles.
Yeah, the bugles are gone, sorry. So along with that, we did do a drug take back. We also held one on the 22nd at the fire department. I think Brandon got about close to 20 pounds. You know, that's with our drop box and with the stuff that was dropped
People
off.
bringing in their garbage bags.
Yes, garbage bags and sandwich bags and yeah. That's a different story. So the next thing I have on here, I still am seeking information on it, but Senator Rick Scott of Florida has introduced the School Guardian Act, which he is attempting to reclaim 86 billion that has been allocated for the addition of IRS agents and take that and put a police officer in every K through 12 school throughout the country, both private and public. Again, we'll see if that takes any I guess if it has any bite or not. I think, again, from the law enforcement side, I think if I'm a senator or whatever, I would think, man, this is a no-brainer. But I guess we'll see how that goes. And talking the other night at PFC, you know, Boz pointed out that the agents from the IRS are unionized and they'll probably have a hell of a fight, you know, to try to keep this money that's been allocated. But at any rate, it's $86 billion that's sitting there in the government, waiting to be spent, and it would be nice if we could put it to use. Our police vehicle expense budget is way over. Boz and I knew that was going to happen, as of outfitting our new squad. I put Diane a little bit into a tizzy, but I think Boz has her calmed down now. And we will try to find funds in other places to subsidize that.
I think to build on that though, if you know, when we transition between different vehicles that we purchase for the village, we don't have interchangeable bits and pieces on the inside. So where in the past, if you stuck to a Ford,
Yeah.
Lexus, you're good. Here, we've gone based on availability, different models. So because we didn't have the ability to just unplug stuff and throw it in the new one, we basically had
Oh, and
a set.
Also,
Correct.
we are gonna be needing that extra one for when we have NEPCO
Well,
eight.
sure,
We're
yeah.
not getting rid of it this time, right?
We're still discussing that. We're still getting some numbers on that and that'll be brought to you guys. But that's a part of it that we're having to outfit it totally. And we have the money. We just gotta move some stuff around. So.
Famous
Yes.
last words.
Out of your pockets into mine.
Yeah.
We were able to train this month with the county in both emergency vehicle operations and range training. Again, our partnership with the county has been great and that all comes at no cost. Staffing was much better this month. We only had 2 shifts that went uncovered. Squad conditions down below. Just got notified last night that our computer is in for the new squad. So now we're just waiting on a radio. That is setting out at Port Road storage, collecting dust and I guess waiting to be put into to use. Payroll, nothing exciting, no overtime. Traffic enforcement, we had 25 traffic stops, 11 citations. You can see what they were for down below. One ordinance citation at the school for disorderly conduct. Wasn't done this time. Other than that, we did put a crossing guard box in at Fifth and Verbunker. That was put in by Public Works. They got it set up so that we can keep smash and crash safely inside. So if
What are
we
you
do
talking about?
the turtles,
Their little
Oh,
things on the road.
their names are Smash and Crash, because people like to hit them. They're safeguarded there. We do have a code so that if I have a fill, which I thank Boz, greatly for filling in. Oftentimes, I think it's pretty cool that our village administrator will go and stand out in the
Highly
corner.
doubt he appropriately waved at every car going.
Well,
I
I'm
don't.
sure he did.
Absolutely.
I just threw out the kids with the bad haircuts,
One kid,
to include my son.
Yeah, exactly. But it is nice, Public Works and Randall thought of that so that we can utilize and leave that equipment there. There's combination lock on it, so.
because
They can
otherwise they were
access
putting it in their vehicles.
they would put it in their vehicles every time, and Debbie still does that here, so I don't know, we can maybe work on something in the future for her, but she hasn't complained yet, so. Otherwise, budget's under control and I'll take any questions.
Except for that car snafu.
Yeah, except for the car snafu, but we're still at 35% of the budget.
I'd like to know how the planets aligned this month, that you only had 2 shifts uncovered.
Isn't that amazing? Nobody was sick or on vacation, so.
Faking a surgery or.
Faking an injury, yeah, so that worked out well. Again, as summer months are coming up, vacations planned. We'll be creative again, so. I'm very hopeful, if some legislation would come through that would help, that would be amazing.
We're still working on a grant. We should be wrapping it up next week and, to add on I know what Scott mentioned was the budget, the federal budget level, but, the state just approved or just pushed to the governor, the new state, budget. And it's, the wording in there was it's very interesting. I don't know if the governor's gonna sign it, but, it restricts any municipal government to reduce their amount they fund to public safety from the previous year. You have to fund what you funded that last year. And you can only go up.
For all public
Wait,
safety?
say that
When
again?
it comes to public safety, they put a restriction in the current budget where municipal government, cities, regardless of size, you cannot reduce the amount you put towards public safety. It has to be the same or higher. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so like if, whatever, I'm not suggesting we should cut EMS,
Mhm.
but if hypothetically, not suggesting, it's very clear.
Yep.
As we were talking about it earlier, but so if we did that though, wouldn't we just be
Yeah.
shooting ourselves in the
No, they
foot?
use the totality of it. So if
So we
we
just have
did
to
that,
decide,
we would probably have to put more either in capital improvement. I know they need a new truck. We would have
so
to
like
keep,
shifting it around.
we would
okay.
keep the I'm using that number, $120,000 budget we have for them. And we could only go up from there or just keep it at 120. So any cuts you did internal is immaterial to them. They're just gonna look at that number and how they're tracking that. They're adding it to the annual report we send them at budget time that shows what we fund for all our departments. So the
So,
state will have
wow,
the data.
What if we're buying a fire engine one year,
Mhm.
but we're not planning on buying?
Fire engine
continually
is,
every
we
year?
capture that in capital loans. It's not part of their budget.
Okay.
It's just an interesting thing that no one was thinking of, but the Congress or representative stuck it in there. We'll see if the governor
Wow.
goes with it. So
So the grant,
It's interesting.
the grant is the grants are not counted in that.
no, I know, but you started this talking about the grant
Yeah, we still have to submit it to the feds. So we're finishing that.
for the.
This is for a third officer, third
Okay.
full-time officer, fourth full-time officers.
Is that have anything to do with that shared revenue plan thing? I heard on the
That's what it
radio
is,
just
tied
this
to that.
morning, yeah.
Yep.
They
Okay.
have to be spent
Shared
on
revenue.
public safety. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one. The welfare checks, how many of those are mental health, you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's such a broad category. that it doesn't necessarily mean mental health. I can tell you that we didn't have any detentions.
Okay.
You know, so if we did contact crisis, it was a safety plan. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, if we see somebody sitting in a car, it could be categorized if we stop out with them as a welfare check.
Sure, got it. Buzz, so you're talking about a grant that is based on shared revenue that we don't know what's gonna happen?
No, this is a federal, what's it called?
Cops grant.
Cops grant, federal grant that's, for just school safety officers.
Okay,
That's
but then you
funded for
said
3 years.
how did it roll into shared revenue? What did I miss?
He did not transition well.
No, what I was discussing
He just
about
kind of
lowering
rolled
your
right
budget,
into.
the lowering your budget part is based on the shared revenue plan. The
Yes,
state just approved.
Did
Totally
they?
different topic. They didn't approve it, they sent it to the governor. It's up
the
to them.
governor's gotta approve it.
Okay. I guess one other comment very quickly. As you review what I submit to you, if you'd like to see something in a different way, I'm totally open to that. This product has been I guess, the creation of multiple boards over the years saying, I'd like to know where these calls were. You know, so like if nobody looks at the map and doesn't care where they are, then I won't put the little. But if you do, I'll
That's
continue
like
to
a
do it.
memorial John Bingham document.
It
I
is.
don't know if we can change that up.
And that's
Print the
the only
document.
person that I ever know that.
I don't
looked
even
at it.
think we planted a tree.
It's out there,
It's out there.
Is it? Okay,
towards the side over there.
It's a Bing.
just
cherry.
do the document.
Okay, I'm just saying, if there's
We-
something that I can make easier, I certainly will
Can you
try.
retitle the document, the John Bingham Memorial Document?
You be careful what you wish for.
Any old business?
And
Any
it-
new business or old?
Can we, I don't know where I wanna throw this, where are we on Lexipol for both departments? So I know that was a thing when I was on public safety a couple of years ago, like, and I think you started.
Yep. Yeah, we can add a specific update next month.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
I just.
I have one now if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
We can, we have 80 policies issued. The state just pushed out over 50 updates. So of those 50, I have 18 major ones left that I'm editing and implementing. I'm still continuing to work on the time system policy, which is the computer system that we utilize. Because our state audit last time said we were deficient in that area. So 80 issued. As far as full timers, the lowest I have for acknowledgements, even after pushing out these updates, is 65. So one officer has, owes me 15 yet, but
What
again,
do
I
you
just
mean
pushed them out.
acknowledgements?
So when I push out the policy, they get notified. You have a you have a update in Lexipol.
Like when they check their email? How-
Correct, yep, so it'll get an email, and then they have to go into, they can click on the link, it'll take them into the policy. It'll show them where the change is, it'll outline the changes that took place. And they have to actually click a button that says, I have read and understand this
Oh, so
policy."
you don't have to have them come in and
Yeah.
sign policies.
Correct,
Well, that's nice.
so that you can access it on your phone, and then I know exactly which policies they've read, which ones they haven't. And my part-timers are very lax on that, and that's something that. When I have them here for 4 hours, I could tie them up for the whole 4 hours, but. So that's where we're at, still work in progress.
Any new business? Correspondence? Any agenda items to be discussed for next meeting? We're gonna continue the EMS discussion. Anything else we need to talk about? Do we need to begin discussing SRO related things or fourth officers? Are we?
It's all about money. We have the name, we have the billet, we have the position, we have what he'll do, and we just need to find 120 grand.
Or you start clucking and circling to lay the golden
Oh,
egg.
Jesus.
Anything with you, Jason, or
Yeah.
anything for next month? Or just, that should get on the table?
No, just like you mentioned, the EMS
Okay.
input.
Okey dokey. Next meeting, let's see. June 7th, 5 P M, that's a Wednesday?
Wednesday the 7th.
Okay. How does that sound for everyone?
You're out of school, can we go back, or is it you need to be 5? You wanna be 5?
Yes, I'm the problem child. So yeah, we can move that up.
You go with
I
four?
should have said that.
I can get out of work early, yeah, it's not a big deal.
I can
What
keep
for?
you
You
in the
keep
butt
it
for
Or we could
five
do
if
the
you would
police
like.
first.
I like to be the only pain in the butt in the room, so.
Okay.
Well, looks like someone else has got that
Jason,
crown.
there
We
But
could
when
do
you
that
bring-
4?
Carrie,
So that 4? Okay,
4 o'clock.
Wednesday, June 7th, can I have a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
I adjourn at 5:55.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wow, look
Bye,
at
guys.
that. See you guys.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Flexible is the program that we
Oh.
pay.
Oh, questions, questions.
It's like Neola for the
Actually-
school.
Oh, he's still recording.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, made it work.
The drug take back event is where people go and they take back